Je luistert naar een nieuwe aflevering van Over Eten, de podcast voor nieuwsgierige eters en drinkers. Mijn naam is Stijn de Schacht. Welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van Over Eten. Een tijdje terug zag iedereen het in de krant. Groot nieuws, de Superette in Gent stopt ermee. Dus ik dacht dat het hoog tijd was om Sarah Biggie Lemke even over de vloer te krijgen, want ja, het einde van een hoofdstuk, dat moet je toch even kijken hoe dat hoofdstuk helemaal gelopen is. So, Sarah, Biggie, welcome to the podcast. I'm really happy to have you here. And I just said the Superette is closing. It's the end of an era. You're going back to the States.
I am. This is true, yeah. Yep, it's time.
So it's been a couple of years that you've spent time in Gent, manning the oven, womaning the oven, I should say. Being the pit master, the bread maker, everything in between and around it. Is this the end of an era for you as well?
It might be. I don't know. I get asked a lot, what am I going to do when we close and And really, I think the most important thing I need to do now is just take a break. I'm really, for lack of a better way to put it, I'm really tired. It's been a really intense and really wonderful last, 8 years pretty much since we opened. And I just have, on a regular basis, my body really telling me to just slow down a little bit, though I really have to honor that. So I am going to take a break from Horeca for a while. A lot of people assume that I'm just going to wind up in Sicily with Kobe at some point, which I might. It's nice to have that in my back pocket, I suppose. But really, I'm just going to go ahead and go home, spend time with my family. I have a daughter who's 13. And my parents are getting older and all that kind of stuff. And I need to breathe a little bit.
So home is Michigan, America's Dairyland.
Yes.
Is that where you really got fired up to do stuff with bread?
No, not at all, actually. My mother is a wonderful mother and a horrible cook, to be completely honest. 5 kids, we all stayed alive, but it was not because of her exquisite cooking skills. But no, what happened was I went to university and I was studying to be a doctor, actually. And in my studies, I got quite frustrated with just the whole education system and whatever else. And so I started cooking just as I needed a job when I was in university, right? And I really liked it. I liked the pace of it. I liked the creativity that went with it. And so then I dropped out of college. Sorry, Dad. And then wound up going to New York for a few years, cooking in the city. And it was just through multiple different experiences that I kind of found myself in front of a wood-fired oven. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take 1 year and learn how to bake in a wood-fired oven. Because I was like, if I can figure out how to do it the oldest way possible, then you put me in some modern setting and I'm just going to own it, right? And so then I found an apprenticeship in Wisconsin, actually. And set out to do it for just 1 year. And it was after that first year that my body really started to kind of feel the rhythm of it and the flow of it. And I realized that there was so much more for me to learn because I'm actually not a very fast learner. It takes me a really long time to learn something. So then I just kept going. And so my love for bread and for the ovens are very interlinked together. I don't think you could put me in a normal bakery setting and I would be happy. I really like the whole kind of rhythm of having your dough and your oven sort of fit together. That dance is really beautiful to me. And so, it just, when I kind of got that inside of my body, I was like, okay, this is my jam. And I'm going to keep doing it.
So when you say the rhythm and the dance between the oven and the bread and all of that, to me that feels like you have a fire, you light it, it goes wild, then it calms down a bit. You need to light it again or add more fuel to the fire. Is that the rhythm kind of you're referring to, or how should I interpret it?
Yeah, that is kind of the rhythm. And there's also this, the ovens that I work with, you fire it directly inside the oven. So it's a directly fired oven. And so you're always, you're looking at the color changing of the bricks inside, and you're looking at you do have like temperature probes, right? So you're, kind of looking at those two, and then you're looking at how many coals are in there and this and that and whatever. And then you're getting up the next day and you're seeing, like, did my bread bake too fast? Did it bake too slow? Did it like whatever? And then, so you're trying to go ahead and find this beautiful balance between the two of them. So everything is just where you want it to be. And really, it happens seldom, so there's a lot of failure that comes with it. But because of that, when it works, you literally feel like you have just won a gold medal at the Olympics. You're just like, I'm the greatest baker in the world. And then only knowing that the next day you're probably going to fuck it up. So, but that is the dance. That is trying to always kind of find that balance. And I think, I don't know, because I've never really baked in like an actual oven, but for me, I feel like I would miss the beauty in, just like hitting a switch and turning it on and then just waiting until it got up to like 280 or whatever, being like, okay. I like the other part of it.
But since you've been part of the restaurant business, you have worked with conventional ovens.
Yeah, a little bit, but only with pastries.
Okay.
Like I've really never done bread in like oven-y ovens. I've only ever done it wood-fired.
Yeah, the only thing I've done so far is reheat bread, so I'm not much of an expert either. But I must say it is quite convenient that you have a consistent temperature, consistent humidity, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's way more important for pastry than it is for bread. Or am I wrong on that one?
No, I think so. Though I don't have a lot of pastry experience. I don't like having sugar on my hands. I'm like, I always want to like shake it off. But yeah, I think, with pastries it is a little bit more delicate, but certainly with bread, you want it to be, a certain temperature and a bunch of steam and stuff in there and whatever. But I think I've gone ahead and worked with the doughs that I worked with and have my bread be something that works in the ovens that I'm working. You know what I mean? I make the two of them like work together. So that's why, I've had many, many bakers come into Superette and, work with me, and I've learned from them and they've learned from me, and then they've gone on and, started their own bakeries wherever it is. And their bread is always different from what mine is, even though we have the same methods. Do you know what I mean? It just winds up different because they're different. The oven is different, the whole thing. So I think one of the unique things about bread at the Superette is the oven, and you just don't see that very much anymore.
I would say it's a rare treat to see a wood-fired oven that's used to make bread. But after that 1 year, you felt like you were getting into the groove, and you just took a deep dive even further into the whole bread making thing. Then I think you went to California to do even more bread baking. Is that right?
No, I stayed in Wisconsin. So my little trip to California was to kind of find my apprenticeship in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I met with a gentleman who was kind of like the father of like the wood-fired movement in America. His name is Alan Scott. And then he hooked me up with the guy that I got the apprenticeship with. And I just wound up staying there because blah, blah, blah. And then at some point I had a baby, and then and life goes on. So I didn't, seems really horrible for me to say now, but I never really worked at a lot of different bakeries. I just kind of find the one that worked and that meshed with me, and I just kind of rolled with it. So I have my own unique style because I never learned from anybody else.
It's not a horrible thing to say, in my opinion. Word on the street says that you didn't even have a resume when you got in touch with Kobe.
It's very true. Very true. Yeah, it was, I had just, my ex and I had opened a place in Wisconsin, built an oven and all that kind of stuff. And then when we split up, that closed. So I was in this real in-between point in my life. And a friend of mine that I had worked with in New York back when we were babies, so this was like 20 years ago or whatever, he had a buddy of his that had stashed into Wolf. And so he messages me and he's like, yeah, there's this guy in Belgium and he's looking for a wood-fired baker and you should go. And I was like,
Where?
never. I was like, what? Never heard of Kobe, never heard of De Wolf, nothing. And so I was like, okay, whatever.
Maybe heard of Belgium somewhere.
Yeah, a little bit. I was like, Belgium, they do that chocolate thing, right? Waffles? Is this? I was very much a naive American. Like, everybody can go ahead and tag me as that for sure. So I go online, I Google Into Wolf, and there's like Kobe standing in the fucking like fields in Dranuter, like with, and he's got like carrots plated on rocks and stuff. And I'm like, this place is mental. No way. But then I was like, you know what? I'm doing fuck all. Like I'm going to go ahead and send him an email. The worst thing that happens is they read it, they giggle, it goes in the garbage and whatever. My life is still the same. Yeah. And, so I send this email, tick, tick, tick. This is who I am. This is what I do. Hit send. And the next day I wake up and I have an email back and they're like, yeah, you sound really great. Can you send us your CV? And I was just like, I don't have one.
My what?
Yeah, really. I was like, a CV? I don't even know what that is. I had to Google that. And I was like, oh, a resume. Yeah, I don't have one. And so I did. I was just like, I don't have one. Like, I bake bread like this and I do it in ovens like this, like kind of take it or leave it a little bit, And then I got an email back and they're like, sounds great. Can you be here in a month? I was like, what? And then that's what happened. And so then I show up. I had never been to Europe before. And so I show up in Brussels and I've got this, email from them that's like, okay, so arrive at the train station or arrive at the airport, take the train to Poperingen. What the fuck kind of city is this? I don't know how to say Popering, right? Because there's a G and an N and an E at the end. I'm all confused. So I just show my phone to the guy at the ticket counter and he literally looks at me and he goes, are you sure you want to go there? And I was like, well, not anymore. But this is what the message says. He's like, well, it's the end stop, huh? It's the very end. And I was like, okay. And I just get on a train, go to the very, very end stop, and voila, there I was, right into Wolf.
So there you were, just left everything behind to do something you weren't even sure about, judging by the way you just described it.
Yes.
And then you walk into the restaurant, you meet the whole team, you meet Kobe, everybody's really excited, and you see the oven. And you were not excited at all.
God, what a shitty little oven. So it was just, it was not his fault, right? They didn't know they had a local guy build just like a little oven outside, but it was not really a bread oven. And they had they didn't have any like levain that was started. It was just kind of like this mushy pot of like dead flour. And I was like, I'm not sure this is going to work. But what it did lead to was it led to me really kind of like growing again, like with that oven, with that space, and with that team. I had to start a levain. I had to learn about the flours. I had to learn about the oven. And it was Dranuter in October. So it was rainy and it was cold and this is before the kitchen was wood fired at all. So it was all inductions and it was just freezing cold in there all the time. But one of the most amazing things was the team and Kobe really gave me the space and really believed in me to go ahead and like keep working and keep trying and keep doing things like that. So then when we finally were able to make a loaf that was what we were all happy with, it was just like high fives all around. And we were like, woohoo, we did it. And it was great.
So what were the big issues to begin with? The oven wasn't built as a bread oven. But what does that exactly mean? For somebody that has never cooked in a wood-fired oven to begin with, fire's fire.
True, but in a bread oven, what it is so you're not cooking when there's an actual fire in there. It's not like if you're doing pizzas or doing whatever. So what you're doing is you're heating up the oven, and then you want it to get hot, and you want it to stay hot to a certain extent. So it's really important to have enough mass, so bricks, stones in the oven or whatever, to go ahead and hold that heat in there. And then you want to have a nice amount of insulation to go ahead and take the heat that's stored in the bricks and keep it inside of them. Because you want that heat to go into the bread, right? You don't want it to go into outer space. It's not the point. So with this oven, it didn't have any of those things. It didn't have high mass. It wasn't well insulated. It wasn't anything. So you would go ahead and get it hot, and you would kind of take one of the little infrared little thermometer thingies, and read it, and you're like, okay, I think it's good. I think it's good. I think it's good. And then you would go inside to, check your doughs and make sure your doughs were good. And then you go back out 20 minutes later and it's too cold because everything would get lost in a flash. And so then you're like, ah. And then your only option is to then put the bread in an oven that's slightly too cold or to refire it again to try to build the heat on it again. And it's just, and in a normal, in a wood-fired bread oven like the one we have at Superette, it's very high mass. and it's very high insulated. So when she gets hot, and it does take a lot of wood to get her hot, but when she gets hot, she stays hot. So I'll start baking in there at like 320 degrees. And you put 50 loaves of bread in there and it immediately drops down because those loaves suck a certain amount of heat out of the hearth and the top. And so bread goes in, it bakes, you clean it out, sweep all the flour off and whatever. Close the doors up, and within 20 minutes, it's gone ahead and what we call rebound. So the heat that's stored in the bricks like deeper down goes ahead and rises back up to the surface. And my oven will be at 315 degrees again. And then you can just keep going. It's like you charge your batteries with fire as opposed to with gas or electricity.
So the wood oven that you described in the Wolf would actually be more suited for pizzas, which need high heat quickly and done.
Yep. And we did do pizzas in there. I mean, like for staff or whatever, and we did. And then it was great. And that's really lovely because then you're not going ahead and burning as much wood, right? Because you're just looking for that like immediate heat to go ahead and come. So that's really nice. But yeah, for bread, it was challenging.
However, at the Superette these days, you're also doing pizza. Is it easy to do pizza in a bread oven? Is it easier to do pizza in a bread oven than it is to do bread in a pizza oven then?
I think so, but that's also me coming as more of a background as a bread baker than a pizzaiola. So there might be a lot of pizzaiolas out there that are going to call me bullshit on that one. I'm not sure. But for me, I think, I mean, it's really all about kind of controlling your fire at that point, So when I do it because we had like a small pizza oven when we had RTT, which was next to Chambre for several summers. And we had kind of a pizza oven there. And so I would get used to kind of like how to negotiate the fire in that to have it be like not too hot, but not, because I feel like because I'm used to burning a lot of wood, I would have a tendency to get ovens too hot than not hot enough. But what I like I think what I just like in my oven at Superette is, I've spent millions of hours in front of it and thrown millions of pieces of wood in there. So we just know each other. So for me, it's like I know exactly how much to put in there to fire it. I know what the fire should look like. I know when I should go ahead and feed it more. We just know each other. You put me in front of another oven, like I can probably figure it out pretty fast, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But I like the fact that you can go ahead and do, I can bake 150 loaves of bread and then I can turn around and make, 100 pizzas and I can do it in the same oven. I think that's pretty handy. And in a pizza oven, you'd be like, I just baked 6 loaves of bread and now it's done.
I half baked my loaves and it's done.
Yeah, now I got to go put it in the other oven because this isn't going to work.
But so back at In the Wolf, you started getting into the groove. You were making the bread, but there must be a bit of a culture shock in the way the produce is brought to you, where you find produce, all that. You're in the middle of the fields over there. Was it like, okay, so the flour we're having here, not good enough, and then you just go find some better ones?
Well, I mean, I guess I could have done that, but that was not kind of like the ethos of In the Wolf. It was, this is what we have, this is local, this is from around the corner, and we're going to figure out how to use it. So it forces you to go ahead and be creative and pay attention. Because, if you would have given me that flour back in America, I'd have been like, fucking dog shit, I can't do anything with this, oh my God. But it was what I had, so I had to learn to pull, like it's not very strong, it's whatever. So I had to, cut way back in my hydrations and do different things like that. But then I started to go ahead and just create that feel in my hands of what dough should feel like here. And I just allowed my brain to sort of get rid of like numbers on a sheet of paper of what I thought it should be. And that was a lot of what In the Wolf was. You know what I mean? You just had to go ahead and start to work with your intuition. Use all of your senses in order to create something beautiful, because you don't have everything you want. You just have what you have.
So you figured that out, and then the breads came out all right. After that, the idea came to go to Gent.
Yeah, so I was only there for 3 months in the beginning. It was just a tourist visa. And at some point towards the end, Kobe and I were sitting in the garden at Superette, and he said, this is The bread that you're making here, that's really the bread that I really wish that we had here in Belgium, but like at a larger quantity. So how would you feel about coming back and starting a project with me? And like in 2020 hindsight, it was a little bit crazy for me to just be like, I'm going to move to Europe and start a bakery with this guy who I don't really know. But In the Wolf, I think is at that time, but I think always was such a unique experience because you had all these people coming from all these different places, just landing in the fields of Dranuter, all with, the only goal to go ahead and cook for this guy in this place, right? And so
Also, because there's not much else going on
there's
there.
fuck all to do there. There's nothing. And you're all living together in the same houses and you're whatever. But the way that Kobe was able to sort of like build that team and inspire all these young people and motivate them was really something that I had never seen in my entire life. And I was like, wow, this is, and so I was also sort of caught up in that experience, right? And so when he offered this thing to me, which did become Superette, I was kind of like, I couldn't say no because I couldn't imagine not trying, not going ahead and getting to sort of start this project with somebody who I had immense amounts of respect for. Yeah, I mean, it was just, I really didn't even think about it, even though it was like a 4,000 mile, like across the ocean from where I was from, right? I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then we, obviously it took a lot of time. I had to have my work visa come through. I couldn't be in Belgium while all that paperwork was being processed. So I went back home and just like waited. And the whole while, I mean, I think none of us really knew if my work visa was going to go through. So it's not like we were spending a lot of time like chatting about things. We're just waiting. So we had no idea of what Superette was going to be until I sort of like arrived. And then, my first work visa was for a year. So it's like when my feet like landed in Brussels, it was like the clock is ticking.
Yes.
We have got to figure our shit out.
The joy of work visas.
Now. Yeah. And so that was really when, we were sort of like, okay, we're going to, we got to find these spaces. We got to whatever. And Kobe had already had, De Vitrine in Gent. So he had his little foothold in here a little bit. And so he knew he wanted to be in Gent. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm going to let you decide that. And so, we kind of started like coming into Gent and looking at spaces and this, that, and the other thing. All the while, really not really knowing what the fuck we were going to do. We were going to build an oven and make bread, and that was like it. That was our entire business plan at that moment. And then we were in town, I don't know, just, looking at some spaces somewhere, and somebody called them, and they're like, yeah. So there's this old Superette that's empty, and you guys should go take a look at it. And we were like, okay. So, he puts it into Google Maps or whatever. We drive over there. And there was like nothing inside. I mean, it was just completely empty. If you've been inside, there's like the 4 like pillars that are in there, but nothing else. Walls were crumbling, floor was busted out. And for whatever reason, in our crazy little heads, we looked at it and we just saw like this totally blank canvas. And we were like, man, this is going to be fucking rad. Like we can do anything we want in here, anything. And it was like, it was love at first sight. And then we signed the lease on it right before Christmas, I think. And then came back and I started building the oven with 2 guys from Sweden in February, I think.
How much of a oven building experience did you have at that point?
I mean, not that much. I'd helped build 2 ovens before. Because I didn't play enough with Legos or something as a kid. I don't know. I start to stack things up and I get all confused, like, this is such a weird puzzle. But I did know just what I wanted out of an oven as a baker, I guess. And for me too, like I like the experience of building. I like to know what goes into this, this beast that I'm going to go ahead and play around with for however many years. It's a very intimate relationship, I think, what bakers or wood-fired bakers have with their ovens. So I was, helped lay every brick in there. And then took, I think, a month to build it, maybe. Like 1,400 bricks. It's a lot of bricks in there. And then everything else, too, in Superette, because we didn't really have any money, we didn't have investors or anything like that. So literally everything in Superette we just like picked up at like flea markets, and I built the tables in the garden of Kobe's house and like all this kind of stuff. Like people always think that like, ooh, this is such a beautifully curated space, and it's like, nope. We just
Well, in a way it
picked
is.
and choose, and, you know.
In a way it is.
In a way it is, yeah.
That is curating.
But we really just, I mean, we would just sit up in the office at Indewolf, you know, late nights, and that's when we started sort of writing things down and figuring out. And I think really the only reason it became a restaurant was because we had loads of space, right? And then we had another business partner at the time who was the sous chef at Indewolf. And so it sort of made like a little bit of sense to go ahead and have a bakery and a restaurant like all in one space. So then we could all sort of like mash ourselves together. But I think if we would have found a smaller space, it would have wound up just being a bakery, but it didn't. But then the pizzas came about because, you know, the oven like the one we have at Superette, you have to fire it, you know, several hours or, you know, about 8 hours or so, like before you start baking in it. Because like I said before, it's the bricks that hold the heat, right? So we realized that, you know, we were going to be firing it in the evening anyway for me to bake in the next day. So, okay, you got fire and you've got dough and, you know, it's just wow,
it makes sense.
Whoa, pizza's novel. And so that's when we started doing pizzas in there. And now we're a pizza place.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think it's much more than just a pizza place or just a bakery. It feels to me you've also become somewhat of a cornerstone of the neighborhood in a way. When you signed the lease and you were discussing how you were going to do things, did it end up the way you expected it, the way you dreamt it? Or did it really exceed expectations?
I think it really exceeded expectations. I mean, like if I look back, even to like how we started and like the initial ideas on things and whatever, and we did have very, very many like grand plans for this space for sure. But I feel like in the last couple years, maybe especially even since the pandemic, which sort of like, you know, forced everybody to reset, ourselves included, we really have kind of become very, very comfortable and very just confident in what we do and who we are in the neighborhood. And we don't try to do anything that doesn't feel right to us. And I think especially the neighborhood has really recognized that and really embraced us after that, you know, and my staff as well. And so now like you come into Superette and it's just a really warm, welcoming, beautiful place to be. And I think that's ultimately what I always wanted for it to be. I didn't want it to be some ambitious restaurant or bakery or this or whatever. I wanted it to be something where anybody can come in and just kind of feel like they're home. And we finally reached that. And that was like, yay.
High fives all around.
High fives all around. All around. So that really exceeded my expectations because I didn't even know what it would feel like to create something like that until all of a sudden one day it happened. And it just really like, when it settled into my body, I was like, I did it.
Because also you spent some time in Dranutter. You didn't spend that much time in Gent before this whole thing started. So you were on unfamiliar territory as well.
Very much so. And honestly, I feel like I'm still sometimes in Gent in unfamiliar territory. You know, people are like, yeah, what's your favorite place to go in Gent? And I'm like, well, I've spent the last 9 years inside of these four walls. I like it here. But I mean, that's the opening of a space. Do you know what I mean? Is you sign up to open, I think, any business, you're fully committing to that. That's your jam, right? You're not just working for them. You're building and you're creating and you're maintaining and you're everything. And so really it's been, it's been both, my home and my prison for the last 8 years. But yeah, I don't know how to explain it other than, and I think, there's a lot of HORECA people that can back me up on this, but your restaurant really becomes your home. And, even sometimes you just go and sit in your restaurant when you don't want to be home because you're like, I don't know, I have better speakers here than I have at home, so I can listen to music more. Like, I don't know, it's weird, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely had no idea what I was getting into when I went to Ghent at all.
So that's 2 for 2 right now. No idea what you were getting into with Ranutter. No idea what you were getting into with Ghent.
No. I just, for whatever reason, trusted Kobe, and he took me on this adventure.
It's been quite an adventure. As you started in Ghent, did you take something back from In the Wolf to get started, or you really had a blank slate and you could start your doughs from scratch? You could start. You could get new flours. You could do anything you wanted, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely like that. Like maybe I took my levain from In the Wolf that I had built there, but then I was using different flour because they were using flour from like way over like in that area, and I found one that was closer to Ghent. And so with the levain, like if you are feeding it with different flours, it just becomes something different. So it would never be the same as what was in Dranuter anyway. But no, I was really like, could use, as long as it was local, but that was something that was important to me anyway. We could really just sort of play around and do whatever we wanted. Now, obviously, that being said, we were using some of the same farms and the same, meat suppliers and things like that we did use in Dranuter because Kobe had that network. So that made it like a very easy transition. But yeah, all in all, especially with the baking thing, I was able to do whatever I wanted because he's not a baker. He knows fuck all about it, right? He's just like, and you'd feed him something and he's either like good or not or whatever.
He kind of knows what he wants, but how to get there is up to you, the baker.
Exactly. And he still to this day is just sort of like, can you maybe like make this thing for me? And I'm like, been baking. You've seen me shaping pizza dough and doing all this kind of stuff, bread or whatever for the last like decade, and he still is just totally clueless. Like I'm going down to Sicily next week, to his new project, and he's like, "Yeah, I was hoping you could, I don't know, like maybe bring a little levain and maybe like help with the." I was like, yeah. So, but we all have our skills.
And our quirks.
Yeah.
That for sure. I think that's also one of the beautiful things that you have in the restaurant industry is that you learn how to work with everyone's quirks.
You absolutely do. Yeah. And it's beautiful. I mean, and I think also too, like one thing I've become in the last certainly several years of working in the industry and here in Belgium, and I think also just in general is, because I think everybody in the restaurant industry, you want to be able to like do everything, right? And you want to do as best as you can. And like, you can just keep piling it on. I can do it. And I think one thing that I really learned in the last couple of years is that in order to like, if you're in some sort of like management role, it is just as important to go ahead and take care of yourself and like be rested and be like a good human being as it is to go ahead and be a good baker or a good chef, because you got to go ahead and you got to take care of your staff. You know what I mean? Like you need to support them and help them and whatever. And if you're going ahead and like burning the candle at both ends and working whatever it is, 18-hour days or whatever, like you become too exhausted mentally and physically to go ahead and have enough to give to those people that are trying to give everything they have to you, And I had so many years where I didn't really realize that, and I was really a shitty manager. I was just like, because I was just trying to do everything all by myself. And it wasn't until the last couple of years when I also just had a really good staff come in that was willing to sort of like take over more. But I really like started to realize how much better life is when you are just very, very conscious and very respectful of like the people around you. And I think maybe for a while in restaurants you didn't see that, but I think now the work culture is like really changing a lot, which is good.
I think it's also that tipping point where you turn more into a mentor than a boss.
Yeah, that's probably right. Even though mentor, I feel like that's a really weird word for me to hear.
It's a loaded term.
Yeah,
it is a loaded term, but I think if you're guiding people in their path to become better bakers, to become better chefs, to become, it is a part of mentorship. It's not just teaching.
That is very true. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, because it's, when you're a mentor, you're a little bit more of a guide. I don't really know the right word for it. But yeah, I mean, it is like that. And also, too, I mean, it's just, you realize that the better you are to the staff and the people around you, the better they are at their job and the better they are to you. And everybody just in general, like the whole experience is just better,
And
you
even for customers, because in the space that you guys are, there is no hiding away.
Yeah, that's very true.
So if there is no, if there's no good relationships between staff, if people are burnt out, if people are overworking themselves, it rubs off onto the customers.
Absolutely. And I think that happened with us for a couple years, actually. We had, before the pandemic, we were doing, we were open Wednesday through Sunday, I think. So we had 5 dinner services. I don't remember how often I was baking then. I mean, for a while in the beginning, we were baking 5 days a week too, but I had like a larger team then. And then we were also doing, maybe we were doing lunch on Saturday and Sunday. Maybe it was just Sunday for a while. I don't know, whatever. It was an insane amount of hours. It was like ridiculous. And everybody was just exhausted. And so you would come in and nobody wanted to be there because they were fucking tired. And then everybody just gets on everybody's nerves. You know what I mean? And you just see somebody and you're like, I don't like you. And then you can't hide that from the guests. And they automatically will also, I think, just feel tension in a place. Do you know what I mean? Like whenever you go in someplace, if the energy is weird, you can feel it. You're kind of like, I don't know.
Awkward.
And yeah, like, I'm not sure if I want to be here right now, And we had that for years. But now I think, when we come to sort of like our rhythm and our system of what we have and everybody is just, we're all tired, but still like we're all tired and we're all tired together and we're all going to just be there to support ourselves or support each other to go ahead and get through service. And so now when you come in, we can be, and we also too, like, I don't think we do take ourselves seriously, but we make sure that we have a good time while we're doing it. And we want the guests to see that too. So it's not this like open kitchen where we're all like not joking around with each other and whatever. Like we were like, shooting little slingshots of paper at each other last night during service because it was Sunday and we were tired and whatever. And I think it's too that's what makes Superette unique. We all have our own little weirdness about it. And if you are somebody that's going to like Superette, then you're going to like that part of it. And if you think that it's inappropriate and a bit weird, then Superette's probably just not your place.
At a certain point, there were 3 businesses of Kobe in Gent. Did you guys talk to each other and learn from each other? Or not really?
Well, we definitely talked to each other. I mean, there was, because somebody was always forgetting to order something or this, that, and the other thing. So there was this back and forth of like, oh yeah, do you happen to have any blue roll in the basement? It didn't come from ESPC. Oh, fuck yeah. So there was a lot of back and forth like that. And then also too, I mean, we were always baking for chambre or for de vitrina when they needed it. Chaparita. What did we do for Chaparita? Well, and also we were the ones with a really big basement at Superette, so we just had to store everybody's shit.
Okay.
Truth be told. And we also were the ones that had the really good coffee machine, so the boys would always come in for coffee in the morning because they were just like, I have a coffee and I also need 7 liters of cream. Yeah. Okay. There was a lot of that.
At a certain point, they forget to order just to get a good coffee.
I do think that happened quite often. I mean, we used to literally just be like, okay, so Chambre is now taking from us 12 liters of cream a week. Okay, so put on ESPC that we need 16 liters of cream because 12 is going to go to Chambre. And we just, you start to anticipate their orders and be like, okay, because every night it would be the same text message would come through. Can so-and-so stop in the morning? Like, yeah, not a problem. I got it. So there was always back and forth stuff like that. But it was also like, it was really nice because, you had your team that you worked with, but then it was like you also had like these other little, little families that you could go ahead and go and have a drink with and hang out with. And they would, piss and moan about this. And then you could do the same thing and whatever. So I really miss having, we always called them the boys because there was a lot more boys in those kitchens than there's ever been in my kitchen. But I really I really miss having the boys around, to be honest. But they still show up, huh? Every now and then I'm there shaping, and just one of them will just wander on in.
That's nice.
To have a coffee or to do whatever. It's really, really nice. Yeah.
It's really nice. You mentioned Chaparrita. For people that are unaware, that was at the end of the vitrine. The lease was up, but then turned out people mistook the date when it was going to close. So they opened a Mexican pop-up for a couple of months.
Yeah, for like 3 months or something, I think. Yeah. We had a young guy that had been at Inda Wolf from... He's half Belgian and then half American from California. And so he had quite a significant amount of experience cooking Mexican food. And so, yeah, and there was no good Mexican in Gent at the time. So I was just like, yeah, why not? Let's make some Mexican food. And that's how Chaparrita became. Yeah, just a really sort of like one-off kind of idea.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was fun when it lasted. But just a little sidestep for people that don't know what we're on about.
Yeah. Like, what? What is this Chaparrita place they're talking about? Yeah.
Exactly. And but then you were baking breads for all of the restaurants, basically. So that then one by one, they fell.
One by one, you just all fell out.
You're the last one holding up the fort.
Last one standing. Yeah, that's why there's 3 restaurants worth of shit in my basement. Yeah, well, I mean, I think, yeah, with the vitrina, yeah, again, like the lease was up. And so that was like, went to the end of that one, but that was still, I'm trying to remember timelines. I feel like the last 8 years of my life just kind of gets all fuzzy sometimes, but that was before Chambre was open.
Yeah.
Yeah. We closed that
before. Like overlapping a little bit.
Maybe.
I think early 2017 was the end of vitrine.
Okay. And then Chambre opened June of 2017?
Something like
that.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a little overlap. So, but yeah, there was always something else in town. So yeah, so then the vitrina, but then, with the opening of Chambre, we knew it was always just going to be temporary. Like that was always the plan. So yeah, so then when that closed, you were kind of like, okay. But, and I think I mean, we were never ones to like really talk a lot about like the future. So it was just sort of like, okay, well, that one's over. Okay, well, this one's over. It's like, I mean, we didn't, we never looked that far ahead. It just happened that way.
It's just part of the flow.
Just part of the flow. Yeah. It's just, you just have to, I mean, you have to adapt, as everything changes, you just got to go ahead and be like, okay, now what are we going to do? Now what are we going to do?
Did you ever have other restaurants come in and see if you could bake their bread?
Maybe I did in the beginning. And like now we do some bread for elders. Tommy and Romy's new place that opened up in Gent. But I think some of it was, like we had our schedule and we weren't a bakery that was open 6 on 7 or 7 on 7 or whatever, right? So somebody would want bread and they would like, oh yeah, but we're open on Tuesday. And it was like, yeah, I don't bake on Tuesday. I bake on, whatever it is, like Friday and Saturday or whatever the times was. And they were like, yeah, no. Like I didn't have the space to go ahead and like shuffle my schedule around a bunch to go ahead and accommodate that. So then most places were like, okay, well then I'll just find a bakery that will bake for me when I want it. And I was like, okay.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, they have a business to run.
Exactly.
Their way, and you've got a business to run your way. So it makes sense. But I'm just surprised that I never really saw it that much where, for example, with deuren, you see a lot of restaurants like, hey, we've got his meat, we've got that meat. And then that's something that I kind of expected to happen with the Superette, but never really became a thing, where a lot of restaurants are like, oh yeah, we've got Superette bread.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why that never happened. But maybe some of it was too, like, I don't know, maybe my bread was like a little bit too expensive to do a business-to-business thing. And also, too, I mean, it's not like I could just, go ahead and make like an unlimited amount of bread because my oven could just be on all day long and hot all day long. Like there was always a limit, where you could go ahead and bake whatever it was, like 150 some loaves, and then the oven would get too cold, and then it was like, okay, the day is over, And so with something like that, it was like, and at the time when, for years, most of that stuff we could go ahead and just sell out of our own front doors.
So that's interesting. You cannot just refire an oven because it would take too long then.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's how my oven is. If you have an oven that's like not directly fired, so the fire is like right on your baking surface, but rather like below, and then you sort of like direct the fire onto the hearth, then you can sort of like bake with it. But I didn't build one of those.
Maybe a future oven will be like that.
Maybe I'll just let somebody else deal with that.
But that really does show why you're limited and you cannot do all the things you could possibly do in a bakery. And it also shows how you have to work with your oven. It's you call your oven she. It becomes a very intimate relationship, and that really shows in all the stuff you're saying. Which would be more important to you? Would be the oven that you're building in the future, or the sourdough you're starting with?
I think it would be, well, I mean, they're both important, but honestly, I think it would more be the sourdough that I'm starting with. Like as much as like I'm really like I am a wood-fired baker and I'm not interested in baking in another kind of oven. I mean, ultimately is a box that gets hot. You know what I mean? So does it matter? Yes, but in the grand scheme of things, does it? Probably not really. Whereas like your levain, that is like really the heart and soul of the loaves that you're making. And so that's the true expression of the grain that you're using, right? And that's really what bread should be, is the true expression of the grain that you're using. And so I think the levain is the most important.
So you said that next week you're going to go to Sicily. You're probably going to take some of it with you. Then that's going to turn into a whole different story there. Mm-hmm. Different climate, different produce, different humidity.
Different hands.
Exactly, because you're not going to be involved there. Is it like giving up your baby a little bit?
No. I mean, no, because I give my levain away to whoever wants some. Like I always have extra, and it's just like good, like baker karma to give levain to people. So we'll have people come in, nearly once or twice a week and be like, I brought my little container. Can I just have a little bit? And you're like, yeah, go ahead and take it. Because you know that it's something that, I mean, I think it also very much connects people to the space. You know what I mean? And they feel like they have this little bit of Superette when they get that little bit of the levain. And for me, it's like, I mean, I have it all over the place. It's probably stuck to my phone right now. You know what I mean? Like it's like my life is levain. So for me to go ahead and bring some down to the boys and give it to the boys, it's the least that I can do. If I can't be there to like help them, work their oven and bake their bread and whatever, at least I can go ahead and try to set them up to make something, that they like and something that's beautiful. And that's what I'll go ahead and do. They'll find some, some nice flour down there. I sent them a link to some mills, and they're going to go ahead and, get some stuff in for me to play around with. And then I just like show them some stuff, and
you're going to get them started, and then they'll have to write their story.
They're going to have to just fly like the little birds that they are. It's going to be a beautiful thing.
You recently made the announcement that you're moving back to the States. After a couple of years of playing around with dough, you're going to do something else. There's no real future set in stone yet, is there? No,
there's not. Because I don't know what it's going to feel like not to be inside Superette and not to be here. Because I mean, I don't know. Superette was my baby. So it's a big, and it's not like a decision that I made lightly when I decided to leave. It was really like, I really sat with it for a long time and tried to like feel on my feels and all that kind of stuff, and so it's really important for me, to just kind of, like allow myself to like not be in Belgium and not be in a project with Kobe and breathe a little bit. And because this is all that I've known for the last nearly decade of my life. You know what I mean? So for me just to be like, I'm going to jump back into another project, or I'm going to want to find myself doing, X, Y, and Z, it's not realistic. I need to just go ahead and let myself, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to see a friend of mine in New Zealand for a couple months, and just be in nature and get some space, and then go back home. And I have to just feel what it feels like to be back home. 'Cause I don't know. I mean, all I ever do when I go home now is, I see my daughter and I see my parents, but I'm on vacation, right? I don't know what it means to live in America again. Sorry for all Americans listening, and they think that was a really retarded thing to say, but I really don't. So I just want to go there and just see. And if I feel like a fish out of water when I get there, then okay, yeah, then maybe I'll wind up in Sicily with Kobe. Like, I don't know. But I really want to embrace the newness of what can go ahead and happen in my life. You know what I mean? Whereas opposed if I was just to go ahead and like, oh, I'm closing Superette and I'm going to, to Sicily to do this project with Kobe. In my head, I already kind of know what that's going to be like. Like, it's going to be Inda Wolf, but with sunshine and lemons. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of that. Like, I know that dynamic that we have, been there and done that. So I really need a little bit of space to try to like just rediscover what it is that I really want to do in the next phase of my life. And maybe it's dough again, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it could be, but maybe it's not. There's a whole different world out there that I have not been experiencing because I've been standing in front of my oven for the last 9 years,
Cue A Whole New World by Disney.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's going to close down. Was there nobody willing to step in, or you guys just didn't want to let that happen?
Well, I mean, we are still interested in like, if somebody wants to go ahead and take over the space, we are definitely still interested in that. And we've talked to a few people because I think it's a really, really great place for the neighborhood. And I don't want to have to tear the oven down if nobody takes it over, which is what the landlord would make me do, which would break my little heart in two. But I think one of the difficult things with, wanting to like excel the concept of like de Superette or whatever is it's very linked to myself and to Kobe. Mm-hmm. So I think if somebody, that just had, a bit of money and was like, I'm going to take over Superette, for them, it's not interesting because it's already known that I'm leaving and that he's already gone. You know what I mean? So it's like there is no Superette without us. Mm-hmm. So I think if somebody just wants to go ahead and come into the space just to kind of like keep it alive as a restaurant or a bakery or whatever, and then just bring their own new energy into it, I think that would be the best thing for Superette to go ahead and get. Like none of my staff now was really interested in taking it over. Like, they've been there for a while, but they have also in the last few years learned a lot about what they want and what they want to go forward in the future. And it's not necessarily Superette, it's something else, right? Which is great. But yeah, we just need to go ahead and see if there's somebody who goes ahead and walks through the space and gets that same like, oh, this is going to be fucking awesome that we got when we first went into the space, because that's what it needs.
But then as their own story and not as the Superette.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, the Superette was our story, and very much our story. But I think there's a lot of people out there that could go ahead and look at the space and write their own story for it and have it be something that is as beautiful as what Superette is. It'll be their own Superette.
Yeah, because sometimes you see in the restaurant industry, you have chefs and they're training their sous chefs that at a certain point, the chefs take a step back and let the daily running happen by the sous chef. That becomes executive.
Right.
That just was not an option with the people you had.
I think so, or maybe I don't know. I think I'm just one of those. I don't know if I would have ever. I mean, I did let it happen a little bit because I would like go home in the summer, and then like other people would, either bake for me or do pizzas for me or whatever. So I did step back a little bit, but I think we just never had anybody that came in that really wanted to take over that role quite so much, or that I was comfortable having take over that role. I'm not sure, but yeah, we just never did it like that. But we're also horrible business people. Like we were like really, really bad at it. So I think in general, Superette would have been a lot more of a successful place had we had somebody that knew how to run a business in there instead of just a chef and a baker. Just
passionate about product.
Yes. Live and learn.
Yeah, but I think that also, contributed to the success that you're not the business savvy people but very passionate about, the people, the product, and the place.
Yeah.
I think those can be three of the most important pieces when you're running a hospitality business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because we weren't business people and we kept it very, very personal, then it made it a place that like you wouldn't go ahead and find anywhere else. It was just, it's very uniquely Superette, and that's because of who we are more than anything else. I mean, okay, the pizzas are like this and the bread is like this and whatever, but I think it's just because it was always such a really personal project for the two of us, and then also for all the staff that was in there too. They really, I've always had a great group of kids that have been in with me that have just busted their ass, worked so damn hard in that space. And it was just because, I don't know, I guess they liked us, the space, they believed in the project. I'm not really sure. But every time we had somebody come in there, they just worked their asses off for us. And it's just, it was really inspiring. All the people that have rolled through there. We gotta have some damn fine chefs and bakers come in that place.
It sounds like there's a lot of good stuff to look back on. You're going to take a lot of memories with you. What's some of the biggest lessons you've learned in the past decade?
Lessons. Like I said, I'm a slow learner, so god damn, I don't know if I learned anything. Well, no, I think one of the biggest lessons that I have learned is, like I said before, to go ahead and really listen to myself and what I need and know that I can't do everything. At like not even close to doing everything. So it's so important to surround yourself with people that make you better, because otherwise it's not really worth it. You just work yourself into the ground, And so I will definitely take that with me. And so wherever I wind up next, I'll be sure it's a place where I feel like I'm surrounded by people that make me better, and I'm the kind of person that can go ahead and make them better too. I think that's the biggest lesson. And then otherwise, I don't know, learn how to sharpen my knives better, because I've never been very good at that.
Learning how to sharpen your knives is a terrible thing. I'm still not there.
Oh, God. I'm a baker. I mean, my knives are about as sharp as my bench scrapers. So everything just gets cut with a bench scraper in my world. It's a beautiful thing.
And I'm very curious to see how you're going to do a nice julienne with a bench scraper.
I make pizzas for a living. You don't need to worry about julienning anything. It's great. There's no fine dining future for me, everyone. That's for sure.
Well, until when can people still come and visit you and get bread that's made with your hands?
They can come until the 20th of November. That would be, I think it's a Sunday, the end of November. So so come in and say hi to me, and we'll have a drink and a hug and chat. I've like, now that we have made the announcement and, people are obviously coming in and, it's such a bummer, that you're leaving and this, that, but everybody's also really great. Like, they really understand. Like, I haven't had anybody come in and just be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you going? Everybody's just like, oh, we're going to miss this place so much. But yeah, we get it, which is what you should get if you're a neighborhood restaurant, people that just care about you. And so as sad as they are, they know why you're leaving. But yeah, it's been really wonderful to go ahead and have all these people come in and just sit around my bar and eat pizza and tell me how much they're going to miss me in the space and all that kind of stuff. So you can keep doing that, until the 20th of November. And then hopefully on the 20th, we'll have service, and then we'll have a big fucking party. But I don't know yet. Wait for it.
Well, if history tells us anything, there's going to be a party.
No dancing on my bars, though. I don't think it will hold up quite like the bars at Chambre did, everybody. Sorry. But yes, we are known as a company to have some pretty good parties. So I think since we're the last one standing in Belgium, I think we're gonna
You
do
have to make it count.
We are gonna do the old Indewolf name proud. I don't know how the neighbors will feel, but it's okay.
You're not the biggest Instagram person, but let's say people wanna stay up to date with what you're gonna be doing next. Is there a way for people to follow, or you're just gonna leave it up to chance?
Well, I mean, I think they can, if they want to find me, they can find me, obviously, because, my name is sort of linked to the Superette one. But otherwise, I don't even know why I'm on Instagram. I think on Instagram, I'm just Biggie Lemke. So Biggie is the nickname my dad gave me when I was a baby. And I've never got rid of it. So you can just find me like that. And then, I'm not really an Instagrammer. I have very low self-esteem, so it's really hard for me to be on social media. But yeah, you can just find me through that. And then, I'll do something and hopefully it'll be cool, but I don't know what it is yet.
I'm pretty sure the future is gonna, the future's so bright. You gotta wear shades. Yeah. There's gonna be cool stuff coming. If you did cool stuff in the past, you're gonna be doing, same shit in the future. So I'm very much looking forward to see where you end up and what you end up with. And I want to thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you. It was really lovely to talk to you.
Awesome. So up until November, you can still get your pizzas, get your bread, and then this part of the story ends. But then, let's see what the future is holding for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks a bunch. And I'll be coming down for pizza soon.
Good.
Bedankt om te luisteren naar Overeten. Vond je het een leuke aflevering? Deel deze podcast dan zeker met andere foodies. Tag me gerust op Facebook of Instagram via @overetenpodcast. Honger naar meer? Dat is mijn maandelijkse nieuwsbrief vol eet, drink en luisterplezier. Schrijf je in via de website, dat is www.overetenpodcast.be. Bedankt en hopelijk tot binnenkort.